Fred, thanks for being here. Tell us who you are and what you're doing.
My name is Fred Schmidt, and I am a entrepreneur, I guess, most simply put.
And what kind of entrepreneurial things are you working on lately?
Everything that I've done most of my life has all been in entertainment, consumer products and media, and in technology.
And on the technology side, the gaming side?
Yeah, for the last 25 years I've been in the game business. Started out in coming out of television into gaming in Maryland with a legendary game designer named Sid Meier, creator of the Civilization game series and Pirates and F-15 Strike Eagle and many things. And so we started out there and built up that company very large, and I left just pre-IPO. I didn't think we were IPO suitable. I was ultimately proven correct. And I left and joined one of the companies that I had brought when we set up European operations for Microprose, which was the Garriott brothers from Austin here, Robert and Richard Garriott. And I teamed up with them as head of business development, and we built that company up very significantly and sold it to Electronic Arts. Yeah. And then during the 2000 era, we came back together again to build the North American and European headquarters for NCSoft Corporation out of Korea, which is the largest massively multiplayer online gaming company. And when we completed that mission, took them from $0 to $70 million in a couple of years. We all went off and did other things. Richard went to space, to the International Space Station, and I did some other entrepreneurial things. We came back together again here and started Portalarium, which is a mobile and social game company.
That's fabulous. Tell me, you don't seem to do one company at a time. There's a term that you mentioned to me before we started this. You said you're a parallel entrepreneur. Describe that for me.
Well, in addition to my day job, as I call it, in technology and running game companies, I've also had a family business that's spawned out of my love for music and the arts. And it's here in Austin also. It's called Wild About Music. We started that. I mean, actually, it was an amalgamation of a music room and artwork collection that was in my home and got out of control, and a small little 10 by 10 foot booth in the Bluebonnet Market that I think was probably right about where we're sitting here, and was removed in Austin's history to make room for this venue, the Hilton Hotel. And we put that together as a significant store. It's now a multi-million-dollar operation online, and it's bricks and clicks. So traditional retail, but in a very unique music lifestyle kind of an experience. And we cater to everyone from children who love music and want to play music, and music teachers and so forth, all the way to celebrity musicians. And it's really for fans of music. Not just people who are musicians. So I do all of that, and then I've just started up a consulting business now that is going to be building relationships between Austin creative industry companies and technology companies and our friendship city in London, the borough of Hackney, which is also the home of Tech City and an amazing creative cluster there. And I was over with Mayor Leffingwell and a group of tech company CEOs last year. We signed this agreement, and in the last year, just amazing things have been building off of that. And I've found space in my other businesses to allow me to spend probably 50% of my time between Austin and London to build that relationship out ahead of the coming that I see of the free trade agreements between the United States and Europe, which I think will open up phenomenal economic opportunities for Austin specifically, for Texas as a whole, and for the United States and the European Union.
Tell us more about your observations of the tech city in London, in Hackney.
Well, it's one of those interesting things. I've been traveling to London for 40 years now, and have always had a deep personal affinity with London. I started going there as a young man in my teens during the Carnaby Street, Piccadilly circus era, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all that good stuff, and fell in love with it because it had this tremendous creative drive and energy. But over the years, I found that I had lost that somewhere. London became another big city, sort of like New York or San Francisco, and that passion, that energy had disappeared. And so when I quite unexpectedly just decided to go on this trade mission, because it was going to East London, where in my 40 years of going to London, I'd never been to East London. I go, well, why do you go there? I think that's all residential. There's nothing happening there. And they said, oh no, there's things happening there. And in fact, that's the home of Tech City. And I go, now wait a minute, what is Tech City? And what is that doing in East London? And it turns out that because, you know, as is the case in many places, when I was young, I grew up in Detroit, came to this country as a political refugee from Poland, and with my mother, and I grew up in Detroit, in blue-collar areas. And so oftentimes you find that places of great depression and you know, repression spawn a desire and a need for creative release. And so they attract the creative class. And so, you know, the harbingers of change very often in many areas are musicians and writers and artists, because it's cheap rent, and you know, them and the immigrants are the ones that usually go to you know, the most repressed areas, turn them into something that's suddenly fun and vibrant, and then the gentrification begins, and then suddenly it's because it's a cool place. Restaurateurs move in, and then, you know, nightclubs open, and then it's a really happening place, and then the business sector moves in. And in particular, we have found those relationships between technology and the entertainment parts of creative clusters to be very, very well aligned. We find that here in Austin. That's certainly, you know, it's because of the music industry, the film industry, all of the vibrancy that we have in our city here that has also made it a really attractive place for people in technology to want to be, you know, which is just a great combination as it turns out. So that's essentially the story of what's happened in London too. And they found this passion and this energy combined with technology, and it's very, very, very spiritually and professionally aligned with what we have going on in Austin. So I just think there's tremendous opportunities in both directions coming up.
So you've had the opportunity to be over in the tech city, see what's going on. You're clearly a well-established entrepreneur here. Tell me about some similarities and some differences that you've observed between, you know, the two countries, I would like to say, the country of Texas and the country of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, essentially, well put, Laura. You know, I think the thing that obviously London has going for it is because it is, you know, one of the, and perhaps arguably the major business hub of all of Europe, and has been for a very, very long time. It has many more resources and many more things to leverage to accelerate growth. I mean, where Austin, you know, we're at least at the epicenter of our state capital and our state government, which, you know, doesn't always align as well with Austin's needs politically and on other levels as we all might like. But you know, Austin's just a much smaller town. But so when I speak of the borough of Hackney, where Tech City is based, it's really that borough and what's happening there that is the close synergy with Austin. It's not necessarily greater London, because if you took Austin and you put it in Hackney, you'd have very similar size areas and kindred spirits of activity. And you know, the fact that we are surrounded by Texas and Tech City is surrounded by greater London is just sort of incidental. It's really those two spiritual and technical cores that have great relationships together, not unlike what you find in you know, Silicon Valley. And you know, connecting all those pieces becomes a really interesting challenge and an opportunity from, you know, the private sector side through the government sector, weaving academia into all of that to make sure we're, you know, cranking out good workforce development programs that matriculate students that we actually will employ, as opposed to ones who have great degrees and you're going, I don't know what to do with you, but you seem smart. You just don't have any applicable skills. So those kinds of things become, I think, very interesting opportunities to get the pieces really working well. And that's what I think it continues to move in a good direction here in Austin. And a lot of those pieces are also aligning very, very well in the East London area.
Perhaps we should think about getting some exchange between our universities.
Totally, that's very, very high on my list. I'm on the advisory board of the School of Management and Business at the smaller school across the river, St. Edward's University.
Right.
Certainly know a lot of great
Another
people.
great university.
Yeah, and you know that also. I mean, it's much smaller and therefore it offers a different experience than that when University of Texas does. I mean, Texas again, has all the resources and you know is a giant juggernaut, whereas St. Ed's is a much smaller. It's almost an entrepreneurial academic campus, but it has far-reaching missions and you know has a campus in Angers, France, and has study abroad programs in Chile and in Costa Rica and Japan. And when I joined the advisory board, I said, well, do we have anything going on in the UK? And they go, no, actually. And I go, okay, we will soon. So I've put that on my list is to forge a direct university relationship for studying abroad and for exchange programs and internships and so forth between Austin and London.
Great. I know your son was in London for a period of time.
Yeah, well, the London connection just lately has just really it's a recurring theme in my life of late, so that's why I not to use a phrase there that's popular, you know, London is calling,
yes.
Truly. And so, you know, when we were starting up Portalarium, you know, we were out looking for venture capital to back our latest game company. And, you know, we talked to everybody in New York, we talked to everybody on Sand Hill Road, and, you know, a lot of people investing in the game industry just wasn't very popular at that moment. And we got turned down by most people, and those who said they would invest, they said, well, you got to move to Silicon Valley. And we're going, well, why would we do that? There's a reason why we're in Austin, because of its economics, and it's a good entrepreneurial climate and so forth. But so on a lark, actually right here at South by Southwest, we got talked into entering the South by Southwest Accelerator competition. Yeah. And we go, my God, how would we do an accelerator competition? We've been in this business for 25 years. It would take us a half hour just to explain who we are and what we've done. And we have to do this in a 2-minute pitch. Right. So we had to get it down to 5 slides. I put my partner, Richard Garriott, who's a Hall of Fame game designer / British American astronaut cosmonaut, on the stage. So we put our rock star out there. And lo and behold, we won in our category the 2-minute pitch. And then went on to the next day to the 5-minute, and in the audience was a venture capitalist who happened to know our history, and he was from London. And so that day, we literally got a commitment for $1 million from South by Southwest, and I ran into some other high net worth entrepreneurs and venture capitalists over barbecue and beers at 4th and Colorado that same night. Explained to them my experience of the day with this venture capitalist company. They became very engaged in what we were doing, and next thing I knew, they also, over the course of several more days, committed another $1.5 million. So completely unexpectedly and in the most unorthodox way, we ended up raising another $2.5 million bridge round, found our lead VC in the process, and eventually took that into a Series A last year. And so through that and my mission with the mayor to London, we became friends with all of these people in the tech community and in the government sector. And I introduced my son, who is in the digital media management program at St. Ed's, into this equation. He parlayed that into an internship last summer, unofficially, because we don't have any official ones between here and there. So he parlayed that into an unofficial internship for the whole summer as the digital media coordinator for the Shoreditch Fringe Festival in Shoreditch, in the heart of Hackney. And that was in conjunction and in the shadows of the Olympics when that was going on. So just a phenomenal experience for him. And so he's now back, and he's actually been retained by the Borough of Hackney as the project manager for them putting together Hackney House Austin, which is taking place right now for 4 days. They built an entire venue here in Austin and are bringing the entire tech and creative communities from London here. So,
yes, phenomenal.
So it's one of those kinds of things. It's about community. You know, it's so much about community, Laura. That in entrepreneurship, there are no real rules. That's why we do what we do, because we're problem solvers, and we see opportunities and we figure out ways to pursue them. And so by meeting people and listening well and talking to people, you find that there are so many opportunities pretty much with anybody you meet, that if you can build bridges across those opportunities that phenomenal things can happen. And Austin just seems to be a great place where people cooperatively work together, rather than being suspect of each other's motives and so forth. And so it's an area of great collaboration, great community support, and that's why I think we're doing as well as we are and have done as well as we have, even since the 2008 financial downturn. I mean, Austin, if you look at the numbers that are continually reported, Austin has grown 25% during this period. We effectively have had no downturn in these last 5-6 years, and it's mostly due to the creative industries and the technology community in the city.
And you think the creative communities, from what you said earlier on, are so important to these kind of clusters of entrepreneurial activity?
Absolutely. I mean, Richard Florida, who is sort of the master of the creative industries, a creative class story, and really studying it from an academic and a research standpoint. I mean, there's a lot of places where there are, research triangles and research parks, and I mean, just the pure high-end scientific community that, can be anywhere. They work in a bunker, basically, working on very top secret kinds of things. But, when you get outside of that pure realm, and they're often ensconced, obviously, like at UT in academia, because it's a great incubator for that sort of work. And financing it, but elsewhere on the consumer, the public entrepreneurial side, that creative energy and that creative spirit is a very important thing, and entrepreneurs can often start their businesses anywhere. I mean, I came to Austin thinking I'd be here no more than 2 years on my way from the East Coast to California. And that was 24 years ago. And in the meantime, I've started 7 different businesses in the city. And I have a home in LA, so I'm there a lot, do a lot of business in California. But this is where I have started all my businesses, raised my family. The quality of life here is so great. And one of my missions is to continue to find ways to build more headquarter companies in Austin. So often, we end up taking our companies to a certain degree, and actually we've been guilty of this, myself and my partners too, and selling and exiting, which is sort of one way out, I guess, or to move on. And we sell to companies that are from outside of here, and for some reason, they take anywhere from 2 or 3 to sometimes 5 or 10 years to kill what they just spent millions of dollars to acquire. And I've been really trying to study and look at, how do we build more National Instruments and more Whole Foods and more HomeAways in Austin, and specifically in the sector that I work in gaming. We've had a very, very difficult year this last year, mostly because we continue to be a studio town for West Coast companies. Most of the studios that are here are all subsidiaries of San Francisco publishers, and so what ends up happening is a game gets canceled, or there's a board meeting in Mountain View, and a decision is made like, why do we have a studio in Austin? What do they do anyway? I don't know. Shut him down. And it's literally, I mean, that just happened this few months ago with Junction Point Studios here. 130 employees, was a division of Disney, and just released. They were responsible last year almost exclusively for Disney's only major interactive product called Epic Mickey 2, and so the head of that studio, who I know very well, Warren Spector, he was on tour giving a public relations tour of his new product and how great it is for Disney and so forth, but he knew on the backside that rumors were already swirling that they were going to shut down his studio. I mean, what a strange position to even be put in, to be out there selling on one hand, but on the backside that you're, 130 people are going to be looking for work here very shortly.
Well, that's very sad to hear, but let's hope a large section of those 130 people go ahead and use their phenomenal skills to start a new business, as you say, that can be scaled and be entrepreneurial here.
Well, in the game industry, the beauty of it is it's a very turbulent industry, and right now it's in massive disruption. It kind of followed from music through film. It actually started in information. We used to pay for newspapers and magazines, but now everything is free, and so it's very difficult to monetize information and entertainment anymore. And through that disruption, companies are coming and going, and products are coming and going, and it's a very confused state of affairs. However, the overall industry, because of the internet, just continues to get massively larger. So through mobile technology now and social gaming, we are now reaching, games like from Zynga in the last few years, they've gone from 0 customers and players at launch to 80 to 100 million players in 30 days. I mean, just massive, massive audience reach. Before that, if we reached 1 million or 10 million customers, that was a lot. Now it's pushing scales of 100 million for a single product, and that's globally. Right. And we used to have translations where we would do a game, and then we'd have to, 6 months later, do versions for Europe in other languages and for Asia. But now, when you launch a game on the internet, it's instantly global around the world. So the paradigms have really changed dramatically just in the last 5-10 years.
And the cost of starting a business has changed dramatically.
Yes.
Which makes a big difference.
So I'm hoping it's great opportunity ahead though for Austin to figure out how to do what we do so well, even better, to create long-term sustainable businesses and careers and companies in our city, because this is just a great place to do business.
And for you to do it along with doing it in Tech City as well, by the sound of it. Tech City happening.
Yeah. Well, I just think that there's this tremendous opportunity, and Austin and Texas as a whole are really well positioned because Texas and the UK have already long-standing economic relationships on many levels, in the oil industry
right.
and in other areas. And so there's a lot of trade that's already existed between the UK and Texas. And I think, with the coming of a free trade agreement, that could explode hugely. And, I think Austin and Texas are extremely well positioned to be tremendous beneficiaries of that opportunity.
You epitomize the classic entrepreneur. You've seen the problem, you're going to build the solution, and you're going to make it work and scale it till it's large, by the sound of it.
And not knowing what that whole plan looks like. You just go in toward the problem and you hope to make incremental progress along the way. And, as an immigrant myself, Laura, I believe that, building successful businesses is it's obviously part talent and the people you work with, part having a great product, and part tenacity and making the right mistakes and surviving them. But it's also, frankly, in all the things that I've tried and the various failures I've had too, as we all do, is it's part luck. Some of it is just being in the right place at the right time when the right things align and, you take off. It's something you can't predict, you can't control. There's been wonderful books and movies and music made over the years and apps these days that just never see the light of day. And so some of it is just, good fortune, but you can certainly see where opportunity might be, arising on the horizon, and try to position yourself to catch that little piece of spotlight when it finally shines down.
So when that spotlight shines down, and as you think of the next year and what you're going to be doing or what you're in your entrepreneurial endeavors, is there one particular thing that you would like to achieve, one particular aspect you'd like help with, one particular area that you think you're going to have to build on or look to solve a problem in?
Well, I work very incrementally, because once you kind of know where you're trying to go, the question is what steps do you next take? So, my most immediate tactical process is to align myself very well with established centers of entrepreneurial activity to accomplish this goal that I see worth pursuing. And so here in Austin, I've now aligned myself and am officing out of the Capital Factory, which is just, I think, an incredible incubator that Josh Bayer has built there. And the energy I feel there and the companies that are there, I think have a lot of promise, and I think it's a great model for Austin to develop upon. And over in London, I've aligned myself with a great creative agency called Mother London, and that's where I'll be taking up space there to work again on the technology and the creative sides. And the goal is to take more tech and creative industry companies and leaders from Austin to London and introduce them to the European market opportunity through that pipeline, and vice versa, bring promising talent from there that I think could really engage with Austin and find the heartbeat in this city and become successful here. So hopefully setting up new headquarter companies in Austin rather than New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles, which is probably where they would think to go because they're just not thinking about Austin.
Well, I think you're certainly helping Austin become the entrepreneurial capital of the world, not just the musical capital of the world. And for your time today, we so greatly appreciate this, Fred. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Laura. Thanks for asking me over.
Welcome.